Lesson 4.5, solving quadratics using square roots. So we're going to start off with 7 squared equals 49. So 49 is the perfect square. The 7, however, is the root. We could also have negative 7 squared equals 49 because that is saying negative 7 times negative 7. What we cannot have is negative 7 squared. That would equal negative 49 because the exponent of 2 is only applied to the 7. So this is not the same as these two. You must also know in this lesson that the square root of m, this expression is called the radical. This is the radical sign, and the m is the radicand. We're going to multiply and simplify before we get on to solving. So I have 3 examples. So example letter A, we have the square root of 2 times the square root of 18. So I can just multiply those together to get the square root of 36, and that simplifies to 6. For letter B, we have 3 times 6 is equal to 18. And then we can break that into 9 times 2, we can factor it, or we could say 9 times 2 this way. Either way, we end up with the answer 3 square root 2. My final example, we must simplify the denominator. We cannot have a radical expression in the denominator. So this one happens to be pretty easy. We break it up into 2 parts, square root of 9, square root of 16, so we end up with 3 over 4 as my answer. Here we need to rationalize the denominator, and I have 2 different examples. For the first example, we're going to start off like we did on the previous slide. We're going to create 2 separate radical expressions, and then we will multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. Square root of 2 over the square root of 2 is equal to 1, so we're not really changing the value. So we end up with the square root of 10 over the square root of 4, and that simplifies to the square root of 10 over 2. For the second example, we have an expression in the denominator, so we need to multiply by the conjugate. The conjugate is the exact same denominator except that we'll use the opposite sign. So because we have a plus sign here, we're going to multiply by 7 minus the square root of 2 in the numerator and in the denominator. So we would say 3 times 7 is 21. 3, so we end up with negative 3 square root 2, and then we're actually going to FOIL this denominator, so 7 times 7 is 49, then 7, so we end up with negative 7 square root 2, positive 7 square root 2, and minus the square root of 4. We can simplify this denominator by combining like terms. So the final answer will be 21 minus 3 square root 2 over 49, and it's actually minus 2 because the square root of 4 is 2, so over 47, and that is as simplified as that one can become. Previously, we worked with quadratic equations and expressions that involved a b term, but you'll notice in today's lesson we only have the a and the c. There is no b. So if I add 7 to both sides, I end up with m squared equals 36. So then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So m equals plus or minus 6. And this is because if I had negative 6 squared, I would get 36. And if I had 6 squared, I get 36. So we can solve a simple quadratic equation that does not have a b term by just using square roots.